How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gianluca, aka Dr. Calcagno, and I'm currently a first-year family medicine resident that's working and studying here in Canada. I'm going to timestamp this entire video. I know that everyone watching this video is going to be very, very busy right now. So go ahead and skip ahead to whatever parts you are most interested in. But in today's video, we're going to be talking all about the CASPER exam, or I guess more specifically, the 2022 version of what is now the ALTUS suite exams, which in my opinion have introduced some of the most drastic changes to this exam that we've seen probably ever so far. So to start this video off, I'm going to break down the changes, and then after that, I'll give you a few short tips that I used from myself to score in probably the highest section of the CASPER scores. And then finally, the last thing that I'm going to do is that I interviewed 3 different students over the last few weeks that have scored in the 4th quartile, the highest quartile for CASPER, and they'll go ahead and share their favorite tips with you as well. That way you guys could take something with you in terms of preparing for this exam, or if you have the exam tomorrow and you just need a few short tips to get ready right at the end. So the first thing that you should all know is that when I wrote this exam 4 years ago, CASPER looked entirely different. At the time, it was a 90-minute short answer type exam with 12 different sections. Each section allowed you for about 5 minutes. There were 3 open-ended questions per section. You would either read the prompt or watch the video and then answer these open-ended questions, going ahead and keeping in mind the competencies that CASPER was testing you for. Now, if we flash forward to 2022 and probably moving forward at this point, the CASPER exam, now the ALTUS suite exams, are a series of 3 different exams. You have CASPER, you have duet, and you have snapshot. Each of the 3, I'll go ahead and leave a link as to what is expected on that particular part of the exam. But what's very important for you to know is that CASPER itself, even within that individual section, has totally changed from when I wrote it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The other thing to know is that you don't need to write all 3 sections of the ALTUS suites. It all depends on what program you are applying to. It says on their website, and in doing a little bit of research, it looks like right now, if you are a Canadian applicant or a UK applicant to medical school or one of the post-grad programs that we have, you're probably only going to have to go ahead and write the CASPER exam. I would look into your specific program though to double check that. It looks like a lot of the schools in the US though are moving towards a CASPER and snapshot model, with some of them also requiring duet, and there's a whole bunch of other things to consider too. Veterinary college, certain nursing programs, there are so many different programs that are using CASPER these days and the ALTUS suite exams. Now, when speaking about CASPER specifically, here's the big change. From going from a 12-section exam, as of this year, it is now a 15-section exam broken down into 2 different parts that in some cases, and after speaking to a few students, span the full course of about 2 hours. Now the breakdown itself is going to be listed on their website. We'll get into that really quickly. But the first section is going to be the typed responses part. You're going to do 3 word-based and 6 video-based scenarios. That is going to resemble the traditional CASPER exam. In that first section, you're going to have your 5 minutes per section broken down into 3 questions. That part's all the same. All of my previous tips that I have in former videos are going to be valid, and you should go ahead and look into those if you're interested. We'll have some more in this video too. But it is now the second section, which is now mandatory. It's not snapshot. It is included in the actual CASPER exam. And this is the second section where you have only video responses. You will have 2 word-based and 4 video-based scenarios. For each scenario, you will be provided a total of 1 minute to record your responses to each of the 3 open-ended questions. So basically, what you need to know is that CASPER's second section is now, it's an interview. It's basically an interview. It is a situational judgment test that they will be evaluating you on based on your presentation of your answers, taking into account nonverbal cues plus your actual presentation itself. This is basically a medical school interview or professional interview before you get to that part. Now, probably in the future, I'll go ahead and do a video with just my reaction, what I think about this direction that CASPER is taking and how it's going to affect medical school applicants. But what you probably need to know today is how they're going to evaluate you and what you should be doing to prepare. One thing that I do want to say though, in case people were curious as to why they say that they've implemented these changes, is because for many years, CASPER and ALTUS was criticized that this was strictly a typing speed test. That in order to do well on the test, you needed to type very, very quickly and very, very proficiently. I kind of disproved that a little bit when I came out with my guide, and my typing speed really wasn't the best. And I still did really, really well on the exam. Having said that, they do say that this particular video component of the exam was put into place to address people's concerns that this was a typing speed test. test. So I guess in a way, as a pre-med and medical school society that I was a part of myself, we kind of indirectly might have done this one to ourselves. So now we'll get down to how you go ahead and prepare for the CASPER exam. And first and foremost, to anyone that previously thought that maybe it wasn't a good idea to prepare for the exam, now more than ever, I do think that especially for the second component of this exam, that being the video responses, you're gonna wanna prepare. And my logic for that is for the majority of people going to a medical school interview, for example, they will not endorse that they went into that medical school interview without preparing. There are certain nuances and ways of presenting certain arguments and communicating with people, especially in this sort of virtual format like this, that you do need to practice. And that's why now more than ever, I would recommend that students, in the very least, take about 1 to 2 weeks time preparation. When I prepared myself, I did do about 1.5 months of prep for just the written component. I wouldn't advise more than that. So comfort levels are gonna go ahead and change. I say between 1 week and 1.5 months is what you're looking at for total prep time. Now, when preparing for the CASPER exam, what's very, very important that everyone remembers is that CASPER tells you how they're going to evaluate you. There are 10 different things that they're looking for, those being collaboration, motivation, communication, problem solving, empathy, professionalism, equity, resilience, ethics, and self-awareness. And what you need to go ahead and remember on top of all of this is that really the exam is testing you on, number 1, your ability to work well with others. Number 2, your ability to problem solve when faced with difficult situations. And number 3, your ability to keep a central ethical compass as you're navigating those first 2 parts that they're also testing you on. Now, when working with students that are getting ready for the CASPER exam, there are always 3 different things that I try to have them practice in order to get ready and have stronger answers for both parts of the exam. The first of which being that you should always try and consider both sides of an argument. The second being is that when you are doing a particular situation, you have to, every single time, stick to the rules and laws of that established scenario. Don't break any laws, don't break any company rules, don't do anything that would be perceived as unprofessional. And finally, the last thing that you should be doing in every single scenario is to reach some sort of definite resolution that goes ahead and tries to consider other people's point of view. You're going to try and help both parties involved, if there are multiple parties involved, as much as you can, while at the same time being fair, professional, and equitable. Those are the 3 things I would recommend everyone do for every single situation that you come across. And then my bonus tip is to always go ahead and reach out to other people and collaborate with others. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. You could be a school employee, you could be working at Shoppers Drug Mart, you could be in the hospital. It's just an easy bonus mark to say that I would reach out to my supervisor, I would reach out to other colleagues and ask them for their input on the situation, assuming that there is no confidentiality break that you would be doing if you reached out to someone else. Now, the last thing that I want to say before we break out to the 3 students that I interviewed that just very recently, within the last 1 to 2 years, got the top quartile for the CASPER exam, is that because now there is this video component that is it is a big part of the exam and is very different for many people that have never come across this type of medium before. Speaking to a camera is incredibly difficult. I will say that after you did some of the verbal responses in terms of writing them down and figuring out your thoughts on paper, you are going to want to record yourself. You are going to want to play that back. And as cringy as it might seem in a little bit, paying attention to things like the way you're sitting. Are you using your hands too much when you speak, keeping in mind that this is a YouTube video and I wouldn't necessarily present myself like this if I was doing the CASPER exam. But pay attention to all of the different things that you bring to a particular argument, even the pauses and how you communicate yourself. These are all things that you should be paying attention to, and having a partner that you could reach out to and asking for their feedback is also something that I would really recommend for anyone that's getting ready for the CASPER. I'm going to toss it now to Nima. Nima, please introduce yourself. Let everyone know who you are, where you're at, when you wrote CASPER, okay?
Absolutely, Gianluca. I mean, first off, it is a major, just incredible pleasure to be here. I was just talking to you just a few minutes ago saying, a year ago today, I was watching Gianluca's video trying to do well on my CASPER. Like, it was literally like a year ago today, October 12th of 2021. And here I am sitting in this seat. And I just want to tell all the applicants that, you know, one day, like maybe a year from now, you're going to be sitting in this seat talking to Gianluca, which is a dream come true for me. So a little bit about me. So just like Gianluca said, my name is Nima. I'm a first-year medical student at McMaster in the Hamilton campus. And because I was fortunate to interview at McMaster and Ottawa, which were 2 schools that use the CASPER test, I think I have some advice that our listeners can benefit from, Gianluca.
That's awesome. Listen, Nima, I'm really curious. How did you prepare for this thing? Because I had my recommendations. The whole point of this video is trying to get as many different high quartile scores. And I know you got the 4th quartile. So just tell people, what do you recommend in terms of how long to study for, some resources you use, things like that?
100%. So Gianluca, here's what I'll tell you. If applicants go on the Casper website, one of the things that they say in their FAQ is that Casper is a type of assessment that research has proven it's more immune to training than a lot of other tests are. Now, what does this mean? This doesn't mean that prepping isn't going to make you succeed, but that it's the type of prep that I think makes the difference. So I'll clarify what I mean. Casper is a test that asks about you. What are your traits? What are your experiences? What are your professional and personal life experiences like? So I personally believe that the key to success that worked out best for me was focusing my energy on self-prep as opposed to prepping with third-party resources. Now, that's not to say that there aren't good third-party resources out there, but almost every single second of my Casper prep time was devoted to reflection. I'll actually tell applicants a 3-step process I used that I think made me succeed. The first thing I did, guys, and Gianluca actually points to this in his Casper video that he posted last year, and definitely check that out. The first thing that I did was I went to the Casper website and I looked at their core competencies. Guys, the Casper core competencies are literally the rubric upon which they mark your answer. They say that on the website. And those 10 words are collaboration, communication, empathy, professionalism, problem solving, motivation, and a few more: ethics, equity, and resilience. There we go. I hope I got 10. There we go. So guys, in fact, these words are so important. I actually got them printed and stuck them to my wall, and they're still on my wall. Like, I just ripped them off my wall. So guys, the first thing I did is I printed these, and every night before I went to sleep, I memorized these 10 words. The second thing I did, Gianluca, was I created a document and I wrote each of these 10 words down, and I thought about an experience in my professional or personal life that I demonstrated each of these traits positively and negatively. This helped me prepare for questions that are like, describe a time that you were a good teammate, or describe a time that you were a bad teammate. Those personal questions that I think you would agree, Gianluca, are sometimes the more challenging ones.
I thought so.
Yeah, exactly. And then, guys, what I did in step number 3, and you might not believe this, but I actually educated myself on what the definitions of these 10 words are. And let me just tell you why. A lot of us might think we know what a communicator means, or what a collaborator might mean. But when you actually search these up, when you search concepts like empathy, communication, collaboration, you get a much different perspective. And I'll just give you an example. I tended to think about communication as a person's ability to work in a team and communicate reciprocally. But I ended up figuring out that communication is much more about your mannerism of communication. How well are you able to orally and in a written way communicate in a clear way, in a concise way, in a way that's understandable to others, in a way that's equitable and is understandable for your listener. So my advice to applicants is to search up each of these words on Google. A website I used that actually helped me understand these definitions was CasperTest.com. This is not the official Casper Test website, by the way. This is actually Astrof, which is a Casper prep company, but they have this extensive list of all the definitions, and this really, really oriented me in the right direction. So guys, consider these 3 things, and trust me, self-prep is worth it, because Casper is a test about you, not what third-party resources you used. Would you like me to give applicants an example, Gianluca?
By all means, if you have one, that'd be great.
Awesome. So guys, suppose that you get a scenario that says a student cheated on a test and you as a tutor caught them doing so. What would you do? My tip to applicants would be have an introductory statement, like I said, and you can start that off by saying that as the tutor for these students, I recognize that this is a very difficult situation. So acknowledgement of the ethical scenario that was given to you. Then, like I said, having 2 to 3 points, just like a 5-paragraph essay has like an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, you can have 2 to 3 points. So point number 1 can be, on one hand, I'm the tutor for these students and I care for them. And I understand that reporting them for academic dishonesty could result in damage in our bond and connection together. Your point number 2 can be, on the other hand, as a tutor, I see myself ethically responsible to uphold the academic integrity values of this course. And then your third point can be, therefore, weighing these 2 options, it is in the interest of fairness of all the other students for these students to be held accountable. And then your concluding statement can be, therefore, I would prefer to hold students accountable. However, I will provide them with the necessary support resources to succeed in the future. So look at that. a brief hook in the beginning, 3 distinct organized points, and then a conclusion that's positive and has resolution. That's my advice.
You know what that sounds like to me? The answer that you gave is basically a response to a medical school interview question. When you go for interviews later, and I feel like that's what Casper Snapshot is really designed to do, kind of lead you into what the interview process will eventually be like. Personally, I like your example. I tend to, and if I may just add, what I would probably shoehorn in there somehow too, is that before I go and ultimately report the student, if that's the option that I'm taking, that first I'm having a discussion with that student, explaining the reason to them rather than going around their back. And it's all these little, I know because you scored so highly, you were doing that too all throughout, but it's these little tips that I think make that little bit of a difference.
Hi everyone, my name is Anahat. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in my first year of medical school at the University of Alberta, and I'm very excited to be here. I did watch your video and took tips from that. And so I wrote it last year, and I was looking at kind of how to prepare. And so I think you prepared for about 6 weeks or for like a little over a month. I prepared for a week before my exam. Just a little bit over a week. And so I didn't follow the schedule per se, but within that week, I did a lot of practice. So I think the main thing, if I can get one message across, would be to do a lot of practice. So I prep for that week, 1 to 2 hours a day, sometimes 3 on the weekend. I would just practice scenarios and review, and then see how I can make my answers a little bit better. So that's what I did for the most part.
In terms of resources that you would recommend for people, what did you use to study? You said practice. What were your go-tos?
Yeah, so the resources, I just found a Facebook group. There's a lot of pre-med Facebook groups out there, so I decided to join one. And we just compiled practice questions online, whether that be from Casper themselves, they have a few practice tests, or whether that be from other sources. The names are just escaping my head right now, but there's a lot of, like, if you go Casper prep companies, they offer a lot of practice questions. You can compile them. There was like some from BMO, some from other companies. And so we compiled a huge document of them and just practiced off of them. So my 2 best tips, I would say, is have key sentences ready. So what do I mean by that? There's a different evaluator for each station. So if you say for one station, I will not be judgmental, or I will gather more information, just for examples, and you want to exemplify those qualities in your next station, you have to repeat that. Just have that in the back of your mind and ready to type it out, because someone else is evaluating the other station. So they don't know that you will act in a way that's non-judgmental. They don't know that you're going to seek more information. So don't assume they know, because there's a different evaluator for each station. So have some key sentences ready that get the point across. And my second point would be having a framework that works best for you. So I am very much a chem physics person, and I love formulas. And I think frameworks help me understand stuff. And so having a framework that works best for me, there's lots online, but the one that I kind of loosely use, I didn't use this as a T, was the PPRDG framework. So that stands for problem, perspectives, responsibility, decision, and justification. And I would just look at a question, and it would help me organize, okay, what's actually the problem here? What are the different perspectives? There's usually multiple. And what's my role? Am I a friend? Am I a colleague? Am I a superior? Am I a subordinate? It's really important to know what your role is in this case. And then what decision are you going to make ultimately? And why have you come to that decision? So those would be my 2 tips. Have a framework that works for you. You don't have to stick to it to the T. Like I didn't stick to this one to the T, just help me organize my thoughts, and have key sentences ready to go and use them for the questions you feel are appropriate.
My name is Rushil. I'm currently a 4th year student studying at the University of Toronto. I'm doing a double major in neuroscience and psychology. And I took Casper earlier this year on August 30th. And I scored a 4th quartile. So I'm happy to be here to share some advice on how you guys could do the same.
That's awesome. The first thing that I've been asking everyone, just because I feel like this area has a lot of differences in terms of what people are sharing with me. How long did you prepare for Casper? Was it a week? Was it 2 weeks? Did you prepare at all? Was it a month? What did you think?
Yeah, I do get this question a lot as part of the Med Boys. We do sort of like medical school admissions process related stuff a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our videos are related to Casper. And the advice that we normally give to people, and the advice that I took myself, is to actually prepare for around two to 3 weeks. I'd say that's a very solid amount of time. You can get through all the content and be ready for the Casper exam in 2 weeks. I feel like a lot of people do say 4 weeks, but that might be stretching it. I feel like it can interfere with other stuff you might have going on in your life. So I think 2 weeks is a solid benchmark. For me, Nimit and Naman, the other two content creators on MedBoys, they looked through my answers. I did a bunch of practice questions, like I said. They looked through my answers and they told me, this sounds weird. This sounds awkward. Like, why are you saying that? Right. So there's just so many different things that other perspectives can offer. It doesn't have to be your friends. They can be colleagues. They can be people that you meet off of Reddit, off of any Facebook group chat, anything, right? As long as you guys are being very objective in the way you guys are assessing each other's answers. And this is really, really important for the video section too, because people can make a lot of awkward gestures on video. A couple of things that I used to do. I used to like move my head around like so much when I was talking. And Nimit and Naman told me, they're like, you're moving your head like you're some crazy guy. And I'm like, okay, I got it. I got to fix that. So,
I guess the issue is that, and I've heard this from a lot of students, we get so used to in undergrad and our experiences leading up to this point, being able to write tests and type tests, right? That when we have that video component, it kind of throws you off at first. And if you aren't well versed in that section, you've never really recorded anything on camera before, it is a little bit jarring in the beginning. You don't know, where do I put my hands, for example? What should my head be doing? Where should I be looking? My advice was always to tell students to go ahead and do some practice samples where you record yourself and then watch how you actually seem on camera. Is that something that you tell students to do, or how would you tell people to prepare for the video section? What did you do?
Absolutely, Gianluca. That's exactly what the best thing to do is just record your answer, record yourself, and review that recording. Make sure that you can look at yourself and send that recording to other people. They can notice things that you don't. And other specialized, I guess, advice for the video section, just take it really easy. Like, don't feel too much pressure for the video section. It's really just you replicating what you're typing and just putting it into words, making it more natural as well. I think a lot of people are too focused on translating exactly what they say on the type section to video, but it's also important to make it sound supernatural. You're not supposed to sound like a robot, right? I feel like it's really something that's discouraged when it comes to Casper.